Thank you everyone for joining this morning's podcast. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about business travel and the current crisis that everyone's going through. I'm happy to welcome Julie Oliver from Reed & Mackay, who is the Global Managing Director of Solutions and Operations, as well as Darryl McGarvey, who is the Director of Travel Partnerships at SAP Concur. Julie, thanks so much for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, where you've been spending lockdown, and also a nice little, what's your TV guilty pleasure over the last few months?
Yep, sure, no problem at all. So my background is business travel. I've been in business travel since I was 18, and I've been at a company called Business Travel Direct for the last 24 years, and we were recently acquired by Reed & Mackay, which was kind of super exciting back in July, and now I have a new role. So that's also quite exciting, and that new role has actually come about very recently while we've been in lockdown. So it's been a bit of a challenge getting to kind of know everybody and meet a new team and everything. So what I've been doing while I've been in lockdown, obviously I've been working from home quite a lot, but I am actually in the Langley office today. And my guilty pleasure, I've got to say, I'm a bit embarrassed to say I love keeping up with the Kardashians. That is definitely my guilty pleasure. So yeah.
Oh, Julie.
I know.
I'm going to have to think of another one now, Julie.
You're going to follow that one.
Yeah, so thanks, Alistair. So yeah, my background, a little bit like Julie, actually. I spent 15 years or so in the business travel space working with TMCs, and I'm now 3 years into my time with SAP Concur, managing the team that manage our travel partnerships. It's still working very closely with the industry. It's still an industry I feel immensely passionate about. I'm still engaged at the heart of the industry with BTA and ITM and those sorts of organizations as well, managing our relationships with those organizations, attending conferences and really kind of being out and about and talking about the industry on behalf of SAP Concur. I've been spending lockdown in actually a gloriously sunny Lancashire, exploring some of the hills and the walks nearby that historically I didn't know were there. And my guilty pleasure, so I'm one of the people who are wearing a mourning the loss of Love Island this summer, but I did manage to stumble across Temptation Island. So I got through 2 seasons of Temptation Island in about a week, which was equally trashy and seedy. So that's probably an insight into my personality.
Brilliant, thanks a lot, Darryl. And I won't bring that up again when we next meet. Anyway, right, sure. Let's get into it. Julie, as the UK and the world started to change a few weeks after the Business Travel Show in the UK in the end of February, what were your initial thoughts about what was going on to our industry?
It was bizarre, literally, because I'd been to Miami. I'd flown to Miami for the IATA summit, actually, with SAP Concur. I was presenting there. And at the time, it did seem things were ramping up, but I was shocked at how quickly this whole situation had descended upon us, basically. So, and the length of time that it's taken. So I think when I look back to the Business Travel Show, we kind of were seeing some of the things that were going on in Asia Pacific. I don't think any of us kind of realised potentially the scale of what was going to happen. It was really challenging. But what I was really pleased about was that our ability, I think generally to adapt. I think all businesses did a fantastic job in, kind of moving to home working really quickly. And as travel companies, the challenge that we had was that right in the middle of everything, we were almost at our busiest because we had people all around the world that we had to sort out, get home, and everything. So, it was the pressure was really on, and I'm super pleased and super proud how well the team actually did in kind of looking after all of our customers. So, but yeah, it was a real challenge, and lots of long hours and hard work by the entire team. So.
What were some of the requests and needs from your clients during that first phase?
Well, I mean, what I can say during the first phase, we had quite a few of our customers actually stuck in China when the first bit happened, actually in the city that it happened. So, we were, when that first happened, we were working with the FCO to try and get them out and back. And then obviously they did come back to the UK in quarantine. So we kind of had a feel for what was coming. But we had, all sorts of challenges. And obviously as countries were shutting down, that became even more complicated as you were trying to get people routes out. So, there was so much thinking outside the box that our teams had to go through. When one airport shut, it's like, well, how do we get you out there? We then had to kind of figure out about taxis and everything, and working really, really closely with our customers. So, it was literally full on and very intense. And as I say, at the same time, we were also moving everyone to home working. So, as I say, the entire team did a great job. The operations area, the IT area, the account management teams, keeping everybody up to speed, making sure that everybody was safe. Obviously, making sure all our platforms and our systems, from a duty of care, all those things, were open and ready. And as I say, it was a huge task. But what I really hoped was that people saw the benefits of working with a travel management company in these times. And I think these times are when our sort of companies really come into their own, and and how we make a difference to our customers.
Yeah, I can imagine. And Daryl, similar question to you. I mean, what have you been finding from chatting with our other partners or the industry as a whole?
The first thing I have to say is just to reiterate what Julie said about the Business Travel Show. It seems like a lifetime ago we were all together in February, and there was a real buzz about the show. I think with there'd been the general election, Brexit had been sorted out to pending implementation periods, but there was a finality. There was a feeling that now was the time to move on. So I left the Business Travel Show. Yes, there was talk of, as Julie said, there was talk of a virus in Asia Pacific. There was no real perception or comprehension of what it would become. So I left the Business Travel Show with a real feeling of optimism for the industry. There was a real buzz about new business, and all of our partners certainly were talking very positively about 2020. Obviously, that's changed immensely, but there's still business out there. So many of our partners are still working on RFPs and bids. I think some of their existing customers have chosen now as a great time to implement a new technology product, an online booking tool, for example, because actually there's no disruption to what they're doing day to day. They can do it now. Take the time, run a pilot, get everything right, so that when they start to travel again, it's with a new suite of technology. So there is still business out there. There are still RFPs and processes. But as Julie says, now's the time that many of our partners are evaluating their business, evaluating how they do business, and also how they make money. I think we've had a transaction fee model in the industry that for many years has meant TMCs only make money if they actually make a booking. And as Julie said, so much more of the work around what a TMC is doing right now to support its customers, rebookings and getting people in and out of countries where they're in trouble, isn't necessarily something that generates revenue for TMC. So I'm sure many of our partners will be looking at commercial models. At the ITM conference, there was much talk of a move to a management fee, if not permanently, then temporarily, perhaps for the rest of this year. And about 70% of buyers were supportive of that. Buyers understand that they need their TMC to be there when things come back on stream again. So we need to make sure that that's a sustainable model for them.
Absolutely right. I mean, Julie, are you changing things at Reed & Mackay, or are you looking to move forward?
So at Reed & Mackay, we do have a number of our customers on management fee already. So that obviously was helpful. But yeah, I mean, I think we've been seeing probably for the last 4 or 5 months anyway, we were getting a lot of conversations around changing the model. We're quite interested in the subscription model. I think that's definitely something that we're exploring at the moment and seeing how that could work. But I agree, I think it's an opportunity for change, and so we are actually seeing with our, as Daryl said, we're quite busy at the moment with new business inquiries, and we are actually seeing some customers asking for different models. But what I would really encourage is that innovation when an RFP does come in. Sometimes it's quite prescriptive, and we're just given a transaction fee list and fill out this and there's no deviation. And I would really, really encourage the buyers to think differently and allow TMCs like us to innovate in that space. And and I think kind of for us to have an opportunity to actually add value to what we do and think about working differently. I think I would definitely encourage that.
Yeah, and are you seeing that as well, Darryl? Do you think this is going to be a fundamental shift in the way that we as a travel industry change for the better?
Absolutely.
Negative situation.
Yeah, I absolutely do, Alistair. And I think what a symptom of that is that the ITM and the BTA as organisations have really come together strongly to lobby governments. I know Clive Ratton was presenting to the House of Commons Select Committee. So, the quarantine is a great example of something that the industry now is lobbying against, because as soon as things start to get going, the last thing you want is a business traveller having to self-isolate for 2 weeks coming into the country. So I think the industry as a whole has come together in perhaps a way it never has before. ITM is great with the buyer and the supplier community. BTA great in terms of the partners and the TMCs, and again lobbying Parliament and having those relationships. So for those two organisations to come together, yes, absolutely, there's a real desire to kind of press the reset button and think about how we can do things, better and more efficiently, streamline a little bit. I'm sure some of the organisations that we deal with will come out of this leaner, and that's kind of an inevitable outcome of the virus, I'm sure.
Yeah, and Julie, talking about the kind of the next stages, I know you mentioned that you're seeing RFPs come through, but do you see things moving forward in the next 2 or 3 months, or are people going to start travelling later this year?
I think we talked about it actually internally the other day. We're seeing kind of little shoots. I won't call them big green shoots, but we're definitely seeing some things happen. Some sectors seem to be a little bit ahead than others. I think we're definitely seeing that around marine and oil and gas. So that's quite interesting. And but yeah, I think we did a big survey with our customers quite recently, and I think people are starting to think about travel now and looking at their policies and how they're going to manage risk. So obviously risk has changed, quite drastically as well. So I think as TMCs, what we're actually doing right now is actually rethinking that as well. So in some respects, having this time to reimagine is actually quite interesting, because we do have to recognise that for people to make the decisions that they were making, that decision making process is going to look completely different. And so one of the things that we're very, very focused on is how can we help our customers make the right decisions. So whether it's a traveller or a booker, when they're choosing their trips, how can we give them the right information at the right point for them to feel comfortable to want to make that trip. And then obviously the second thing we have to figure out for the corporation is how can we kind of de-risk that trip and let them know that as much as we can, the information they can do to actually say we're okay for that person to make that trip. And and obviously then we've got the whole thing of quarantine and what happens at the end when we get into the country. So there's a whole raft of rethinking that we're doing at the moment, and we've got some really good initiatives that we're putting in place and doing to make sure that when things do start to pick up, that we're in really good place to be able to help our clients. And I think that really, really important. And I'm sure that every TMC is looking at that at the moment, because previously it was just a case of we want to go here, I want to go there. You make a booking, it might have an authorization to it, but that whole authorization piece is going to look very, very different. So this time we're using to look at that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think, Darryl, from an SAP Concur perspective, it's going to be fundamentally different, the way people are allowed to travel. I mean, what's your take on it?
Yeah, Caroline Strachan of Festive Road wrote a terrific article. I urge anybody to have a read of it, talking about permissible travel. And she had a formula, which is the first thing that you have to have is company confidence. And that's your company, that they're happy for you to travel and go and see customers and prospects, but also the company that you want to go and see has to be equally comfortable and confident to receive you. So there are two companies that have to be as part of that equation in terms of whether there's that appetite and confidence for you to travel. There's then individual traveller preference, and I think for the foreseeable future, the voice of the traveller is going to have to be heard. There'll be some travellers who absolutely can't wait to get back out on the road and can't wait to get back on a plane, and others who are understandably a little bit more cautious. So I think traveller confidence will have to be taken into account as well. And then, of course, there's country permission, different countries, different rules. As Julie said, different quarantine requirements coming in and out of countries. It's going to be messy for a little while. So I think absolutely, as Julie said, we'll see approval based on risk rather than cost. until tools such as our request tool will have to be configured to allow risk managers and HR managers or directors to be taking a view on travel and making those approval decisions. So it certainly won't be a cost-based decision; it will be a risk-based decision. I think if you look at Facebook, who've cancelled all meetings of 50 people or more until June 2021, I think that's indicative. I don't think many companies will be having travellers travelling for internal meetings. We talked about our crystal ball in February, Julie. I wish I'd bought shares in Zoom back in February. Sadly, I didn't. But that it's really changed the way we think about internal meetings. We as a company are collaborating fantastically well. I'm sure you guys are as well. And I think in terms of just family quizzes and other ways in which people have learned to interact in a different way during lockdown, I think that will change internal meetings for sure. But the flip side of that is, as the recovery starts, there'll be huge demand, I'm sure, for companies that want to get out and win new business and kickstart their businesses again. So while internal meetings I think will drop, I think we'll see external meetings for new business and face-to-face meetings soon recover much more quickly.
Yeah, and that point about working from home, I mean, this one's to you, Julie. I mean, I know you touched on it earlier, but your whole business changing overnight to working from home. Did you have people working from home previously, or was the actual working method changed fundamentally?
No, we did have a fair element of home workers, but as I say, the thing that I found absolutely astounding was the speed with which we were able to move the entire business to home working. So we had really good disaster recovery plans. We were doing a lot of planning prior to the decision to shut the offices anyway. So I think we were in really good shape. I think that the challenge was, and as I say, I think the guys stepped up really well, was that in the middle of all of that was the volume of calls we were getting and the help that we had to give as well. So as I say, I think it was an amazing achievement that we didn't miss a call, that we got everybody where they needed to be, home or whatever. At the same time, we're trying to do this big change. So it was very impressive.
Yeah. Just changing tack slightly. There's been a lot of news. The travel industry hasn't stood still. I'm curious to get your view, Darren, and then Julie, on the Lufthansa and Sabre story and how that's going to impact how we book flights.
It's a great question, and Lufthansa have been the devil in this piece more often than not. I think if you think back to when they introduced surcharges for bookings some time ago now, and that caused a real stir in the industry. So this is Lufthansa making waves, and I think perhaps needlessly right now. My own view is that we need to be thinking for the greater good of the industry, and the GDS model is one that works. All of our TMC partners are working with a GDS, in some form or other. So yeah, I see it as needless politicking on behalf of Lufthansa. There's no need to be pulling out of a particular GDS. I think we need to be supporting our industry. That said, we at Concur obviously have other solutions that will enable those bookings to continue in the same way that they already have through our online booking tool. So from our perspective, the content will be there with any applicable Lufthansa charges. So it affects us less, but it affects our partners more. Those who are on Sabre obviously have some decisions to make in terms of what they do and how they manage Lufthansa on behalf of their customers.
Yeah, and Julie, what's your view?
Okay, so we obviously would prefer that content comes from the GDS, because obviously that works best. And as Darryl said, the servicing side of it works a dream. So that is always our preference. However, we also have a standpoint that we can't be at a situation where we don't have content. So whilst we're hopeful that they will resolve this, we also are aware that we will need a different solution if they don't. So we have those things in place so that if it does happen, that we're ready to support our customers. I think the one thing I would say is that from a booking perspective, and working with different channels is fine. It's the servicing side that causes the issues, and the thing is you look back on what's happened with this recent pandemic, and the servicing issues you could have, if this had scaled up again, it could be quite challenging. And I think, we just need to be mindful of that sometimes, while, things are in a transition with NDC. As I say, I would definitely say that it's always best to have, the whole solution that TMCs can tap into, rather than, being in a situation where we're trying to help a customer and it's a little bit challenging if we have to do changes and rebookings and things like that. But what we wouldn't do is, leave our customers in a situation where they, didn't have the content. So we are, ready for, whatever happens, basically.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Thanks. So obviously we want people to get on planes and get back to doing their normal daily life. But one thing we haven't actually touched on is the hotels in all of this. What are you both hearing from some of the big hotel chains, and how differently is staying in a hotel going to be moving forward? Darryl, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, thanks, Alistair. And so I think what's in fact, just taking a step back from that, travel in itself, I think is going to be a far more lonely thing to do than it has been historically. The whole, one of the joys of business travel was often traveling with a colleague or catching up with colleagues when you're in a particular city or destination, networking. The travel industry itself is a very networking focused industry, with people coming together. So I think it's going to come as a shock when people do start to travel again. Actually, they might find themselves as one of a handful of people on a plane, maybe the only person in a hotel restaurant for the time being. I think check-in at hotel is going to be a much quieter experience as well, with perhaps self-check-in. We know that hotels are looking at managing inventory and things remotely from in cloud-based solutions. So I think it's going to be quite an isolating thing to travel. So I think the first thing that we have to look at is on-trip messaging and making sure that travelers feel connected to not only their company but their family and friends as well. So I think that's the first thing I would say in terms of travel in the new world, as it were. I think it's going to be lonely. Hotels, it's all about cleanliness. I think where we've had negotiated rates in the past based on free Wi-Fi or breakfast, it's now absolutely going to be around a deep clean, making sure somebody arrives in a sanitized room. That might mean there's no more minibars, because obviously you can't have something in a room where somebody's touched something and put it back. So I think you'll see minibars come out of rooms. I don't think you'll see buffet breakfasts for quite some time now. I think you'll have grab and go breakfasts or full a la carte, but not a buffet where people are sharing things. I think you might actually in the short term find yourself arriving at a hotel where the hotel's open but the restaurant isn't yet, or there's lots of unknowns, and what there isn't yet is a global standard. Marriott and Hilton and the chains are working to their own standards and certifications, but there isn't a global certification around hotel cleanliness and deep cleans. Some hotel chains, Best Western, for example, are talking about having nobody in a room within 24 hours of anybody else. So if you think about how inventory is rolled over, actually, if somebody checks out at 12 o'clock on a Monday morning, it'll be Tuesday evening before they can check in again. HRS are actually doing some really clever thinking in terms of flexibility, though. They're talking about offering hotel rooms as day meeting rooms rather than hotel rooms. So, a hotel has some inventory. I think that's a great way of thinking in terms of using that inventory while things are quiet. So there will be some degree of flexibility required.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And Julie, what are you hearing?
Well, obviously, we were talking about protocol. So I understand that the WTTC have recently announced some protocols around hotels that we're hoping will get adopted. But one of the things that we have seen actually is an uptake in apartments. So we were quite surprised about that. Some of our clients who are doing some domestic travel, there definitely seems to be more appetite for apartments. But as Darryl said, I do see things looking quite differently. I personally won't miss the buffet breakfast. I hated them anyway. But I do think that there will be a huge change, and I think it's going to be quite different, and as Darryl said, I wonder if there are those gaps in between when they can take new travellers in, whether that will push prices up. So I think there's going to be probably a lot of volatility around pricing, and again I think we need to, as travel management companies, be able to think, right, how do we help our clients around all of this, that volatility. So again, it's a lot of thinking time for us at the moment, and saying, right, what can we do, what can we introduce, what additional things can we bring in, to help our clients around this kind of new norm, because that's how we have to look at it. It's the new normal. It's not I think some things have fundamentally changed, as Daryl said. I think this whole piece of time of having these months out, and people kind of taking stock. People have new expectations that we have to look at and say, right, how do we help our travellers feel and understand really what's going on, what's happening, what to expect, and it goes back to what both Darren and I have said, is confidence. And it's really important that the hotel industry kind of makes it really clear what that experience will look like, so that people can make the right decisions as to whether they're happy to do what they need to do. I mean, I personally, I'm one of these people. I adore travel, and the moment things are opened up for me, I'm on a plane and I'm going off and doing things. But we also have to be very mindful that not everybody's going to feel like that. It's our job to help people understand what that new world looks like.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And actually on that last point, I was reading an article yesterday about a Dublin-based company that's received $2 million in funding, and their main business in life is to manage the maze of global immigration, taxation, and now COVID restrictions. So do you think there'll be a lot more innovation in our industry with new companies popping up, supporting this new normal, as you said, Julie?
Absolutely, because there's so much information that we're going to have to get through, basically. So, one of the things that we're looking at is, for example, when someone makes a decision to get on a plane, what does that feel like? So what are the airlines doing? What am I going to expect on that trip? Are the, am I going to need to wear a face mask? Those types of things. So I think, there will be definitely innovation going on for sure. And I think it's already happening. We're doing a lot of work around this that we'll be bringing into all our platforms to give people the information that they need to, and the confidence they need to get on a plane or to stay in a hotel or whatever that is. And and I think also it's also a little bit of an opportunity to have a rethink. I mean, I know sustainability comes and goes, but I think sustainability is going to be really important as well going forward, because I think people do want to make the right choices. So I think, say that whole pattern of, when people make business decisions, I think there'll be a whole new raft of different things that people will be thinking about. And it's our job to bring those things to the fore and make those things happen. So yeah, there is definitely space for innovation. And, so I can absolutely say it is actually going on already.
Yeah. And Darryl, what's your view on that?
Yeah, it's straight to pick up on what Julie just said about sustainability. Certainly, one of the things of the ITM conference was very much that sustainability was front of mind before the virus, and actually remains so. We have a sustainability webinar this week, Alistair, on Thursday, a piece that we've done with Raconteur on some sustainability research. It's still there. I think that my favourite phrase from last week was the term screenager. So screenagers are the post-cell phone generation, and they certainly will be still making their choices based on sustainable options. And actually, if you look at some of the bailouts that have gone on, so Air France has received a government bailout, but it's contingent upon them stopping flying domestically on routes where there's a rail journey of less than 2.5 hours. So I think we'll see a real modal shift as well. So yes, we're all super excited to get back on a plane, but I think equally lots of decisions will be taken now to shift, off from the sky onto rail, into cars. So I think our ground transportation partners seem quite optimistic for the rest of the year and into next year that there'll be some shift into ground transportation and certainly rail. So where we have rail options for domestic options, they will certainly be taken, and governments are looking to use this to mandate that shift. That may have taken years in the old world, and in the new world, we'll see that shift happening very quickly.
Yeah. So actually, on that point, Darren, we'll come to you in a second, Julie. Do you think it's a great opportunity for businesses to actually look at their travel policies and make those fundamental changes now while they have the opportunity?
Absolutely. It goes to what Julie was saying earlier on. This is a time for all businesses to reevaluate how they do their business and how they support their travellers. Yeah, absolutely. We'll see travel policy based on, as we said, approval based on risk rather than cost. I don't think we'll be seeing policies based on number of hours in the sky anymore. It will be, can we move people onto rail where appropriate? Can we support sustainable hotel options at the right price and with the right cleanliness guaranteed and those sorts of things as well? So yes, absolutely, we'll see, I think, a shift in policy away from cost. Because actually, if you think about the way the airline industry is going to work, if we think that there's going to be perhaps 40% fewer seats as we keep middle seats in the aisle free, perhaps the back 8 rows of the plane free, decommissioning toilets. So if somebody needs to be quarantined, they can sit at the back. So I think if there's a forecast of 40% less inventory and 50% higher prices, because actually the airlines still need to make money. So if there are fewer seats on the plane, it figures that there'll be the prices will need to be a bit higher. So I think, it's not going to be a cost decision anymore. It's going to be, as Julie says, a confidence decision, a well-being decision, and a sustainability decision as well.
Yeah. What's your view on that as well, Julie?
100% agree. I think it's quite, in some ways, it's quite exciting. I think because we can use this time to reimagine, really, and I think that's the exciting bit, and really innovate and show the value that we bring as a trusted partner to our customers. So from our perspective, we actually see this time as a good time to take stock, as I say, look at everything we do, look at all our processes, look at all the solutions that we offer our customers. I agree. I think the way that people will travel will change. But it's opportunity. We've with sustainability, e-bikes. We're kind of hearing those sorts of things coming in now. I think more people will probably take car hire. I agree with Daryl. People looking at things. We've actually had a couple of train operators talk about actually making bookings before you can get on the trains, because they need to know, how many people are going to be on that train. So I think there's going to be some real big differences. And I think the most important thing for any business right now is to be agile, because I think, we need that agility to be able to kind of manage the new norm. And I think that's a really big thing that we're focusing on, is keeping agility. How do we keep agility in our business? When something changes, how can we manage that? How can we bring it in? And how can we, as I say, give that solution to our customers that they'll need going forward and become that trusted partner? So I think actually our role is going to become, really, really important. And for me, that's a really, really good thing. We've got to, be that trusted partner that can help our clients.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, Daryl and Julie, thank you ever so much for your time today on this Business Travel podcast. Before we sign off, I'm going to come to you both. Where's the first place you're going to be travelling to when we're allowed to, Julie?
Well, I was meant to be in Corfu this week, so I'd like to go to Corfu, so that's where I would like to be.
Brilliant. And Daryl?
Well, I was supposed to be flying to the Dominican Republic next week, so I won't be taking that trip. But as soon as we're able, we'll be going to see my partner's family in Greece, and the Dominican Republic will wait until early in the new year. So yes, I will be getting some sunshine as soon as possible.
Brilliant. Well, thanks again for your time today, both of you, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in the flesh soon. Thank you very much.